What's going on, everyone? So I have a brand new Shadows of the Galaxy spoiler card for today in Spare the Target. It came out a few hours ago, and this one looks pretty sweet. It might be a little bit similar to a card you have seen before in Waylay, but we got to talk about this one. If you want to pick up any of the cards in the Shadows of the Galaxy set when it does come out, I do have a TCG player link in the description down below. Be sure to use that. It does help me out and helps you out. Spare the Target, a 3-costed, 3-resource event in Cunning and Heroism. Return an enemy non-leader unit to its owner's hand, and most importantly, the second clause on this card, collect that unit's bounties. It is an uncommon. This card looks extremely powerful for the next set. We all know how oppressive Waylay can feel when you're fighting the Boba tempo style of deck, where they get to leverage not only the ability to reset the resources that you've spent for their 3 resources, potentially trading up on resources, but also the fact that they basically always trade up on resources because they can ready a resource after removing or getting a unit from your side of the battlefield off the battlefield. Now, what's important about this card, I will say, because of how powerful Waylay has felt, I believe they decided to incorporate heroism into this style of card due to the fact that this being a universal cunning aspect card, or potentially just a cunning villainy card, it could be extremely oppressive with the current versions of Waylay, where Waylay is most strong in those villainy style of decks. So I do think that was kind of a I guess a little bit of a preparation aspect to this, but the fact that you can collect units bounties makes this card extremely powerful for the next set. I've talked a little bit about capture and I've talked a little bit about bounties and things like that. This is one of those cards where people have been asking, hey, how does Waylay interact with bounties? Well, unfortunately, as far as we can understand so far, any card, and I'll move over to the current options that we have right here. Any card like, for example, Dr. Evazan, when it's talking about bounty, it's when this unit is defeated or captured. It's not when it's returned to your hand. So it doesn't count as defeated or captured. So you cannot go ahead and take advantage of whatever bounty that card has, which means a card like Waylay was probably going to be on the weaker side of things if bounty was a prominent mechanic in the next set. And it probably is going to be, based on what we've seen with Dr. Evazan, as well as a few other cards, such as a Wanted here, where you're able to apply this to an enemy unit or your own unit, potentially, although that's probably not going to be something that you really want to do. You probably want to apply this to the enemy unit. You apply it to an enemy unit, and then let's say you wanted to spare the target. Boom, suddenly you've used a combination of Wanted plus spare the target to return a unit to their owner's hand, while also basically reducing spare the target's cost by 2 resources. And yes, that might not be something that's extremely powerful in every scenario, but getting that kind of resource advantage on your opponent can be extremely gross, as we've seen with Boba Fett already. Now, I don't think we've seen a true payoff for Spare the Target yet, as, well, when I looked at bounty in the current Star Wars Unlimited database that we have right now, unless I'm forgetting something, we don't have really that many bounty cards to see what's going to combo with Spare the Target, okay? Another thing to note with this card is that with all the upgrade strategies going around, another option to run another bounce spell, I think, is going to be extremely oppressive. So I was thinking about this and thinking about the advantages of Spare the Targets. Well, bounty is one of them for sure in the second set, but Waylay was already super powerful, right? Waylay, when you're considering all the different upgrades that your opponent has, this just removes them all, resets them on mana resources, which is really powerful. Spare the Target does the same thing, and assuming they want to make upgrades a thing with the new set, as we've seen with, the Mandalorian and his leader ability, and of course, the Razor Crest and all those types of synergies with upgrades, Spare the Target's probably going to go up in value on top of all the things that it works with bounties. And so that's another bonus for Spare the Target. I think this is going to be a card that looks to be potentially a staple for the next set. Again, I will continue saying this, but you do need to find some way to benefit from the bounty collection in order for this to be a significant upgrade over Waylay, as we already have Waylay in the game. So while this card I do think is very strong, it's not really that much of an upgrade unless you're upgrading Waylay from the bounties that you're collecting, right? Because it does the same exact thing. In fact, if you look at the wording on Waylay here, return a non-leader unit to its owner's hand, return an enemy non-leader unit to its owner's hand. The only difference between the two is the fact that you can return your own units with Waylay, which doesn't come up very often. It is very rare when that does happen, but that is a bonus towards Waylay. So if you're looking at these two cards, unless you're collecting bounties, Waylay is technically better, but as we've seen, I imagine that bounties are going to be a very prominent theme. And I think this card is going to be very, very powerful, especially if you're able to leverage a lot of the things that you are able to collect from it. For example, if for some reason they played a Dr. Evazan a little bit later, it would be a crazy turn for you to spare the target their Dr. Evazan back to hand, and maybe it's like turn 4, turn 5. Maybe you just didn't even kill Dr. Evazan, and it's been sitting out on the battlefield for this long. You return it to their hand, giving you 12 resources ready potential, right? Let's say it's like turn 4, turn 5, as I mentioned. You have 5, 6 resources. You spare the targets, and maybe you played a 3 resource play. Then you spare the target. Then you get to reset all your resources. Again, that can be extremely powerful. Mind you, you could technically do this with any of like Takedown, for example, or Power of the Dark Side if they only have one resource available. But in the heroism colors, you really don't see that many options to remove something from your opponent's side of the battlefield. If you consider some of the options that we already have, like open fire, right? Okay, open fire, damage. It's going to get prevented by a shield. Okay, let's consider takedown, right? Takedown is one way you could do it. Or, you could do vanquish as well. But these are all vigilance style cards. We don't really see anything in yellow or red that isn't damage based for you to remove something like a Dr. Evazan. So we've already seen a bonus in that case with the new spare the target card. And I think that is where it's going to see its really key feature is before, getting these bounties collected, it was going to be really a matter of attempting to trade with your opponent's units with this new set if you were not in blue. If you were in blue, then yeah, you could do it, not easily, but yes, if you had the right cards, you can definitely go ahead and take advantage of those bounties. So the controlling decks were a deck to be feared if you were playing things with bounties on your cards. Now it changes the landscape to where if you're playing more aggressive deck, you're playing, Sabine Yellow or whatever, you're playing these more tempo oriented strategies with cunning in their aspects, maybe like a Mandalorian, for example, you are going to be able to benefit from those bounties. And so I think this is going to be an extremely powerful card, and we will just have to see how powerful this will become with the introduction of additional bounty cards, as we only have seen 2 so far, but we have not really seen too many Shadows of the Galaxy cards so far. I think it's like a total of like 20 at this point. This is 6. Okay, not even that. It's 15, 17 cards. So 18 with today's card as well. So I'm really excited. I think that we are going to see some really, really powerful stuff from this set. And I've already been pretty impressed with the ones that we've already seen. Oh, IG-11 should be here as well. So IG-11 is the 18th card, but yeah, or 19th card, I suppose. So yeah, about 20 so far. Yeah, a lot of you were really impressed with IG-11, and I think so as well. I thought he was a pretty powerful card, especially when you compare it to something like a Zeb, because I do think IG is going to be better than that card. And so we've already seen a little bit, if you want to say power creep, and spare the target can also be viewed as just a power crept Waylay, as well, it just does a little bit more things for the most part. Again, you can't target your own units, so that could be something that's really important, but you are getting essentially a spell or an event that is just more advantage in this next set. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next one.